colleagues to vote against the nomination of Tom Price to be the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. The decisions made at HHS touch the lives of every family in America. The secretary who runs this agency makes decisions about everything from the safety of the food we eat to the drugs we take to the health insurance we buy and the quality of the nursing homes that we live in. This is an extremely important job, and unless we are certain that the person will put the American people first every minute of every day. President Trump has nominated Congressman Tom Price to serve in this job. Unlike many of the president's other nominees who are stunningly inexperienced in areas where they will be setting policy, Congressman Price has a lot of experience in healthcare policy. Yes, he has experience, but it is the kind of experience that should horrify you if you care about Medicare, if you care about Medicaid, or if you care about your own insurance coverage. Congressman Price's record is perfectly clear. He wants to destroy fundamental protections that millions of Americans depend on for their health and economic security. And frankly, he isn't very subtle about it. He has described the ACA's ban on discriminating against individuals with pre-existing conditions as, quote, a terrible idea. He has voted 10 times to defund Planned Parenthood, voted 10 times against a group that provides life-saving cancer and sexually transmitted infection screenings to millions of patients a year. He has tried to privatize Medicare and raise the age of eligibility. Privatize Medicare, think about that one. And he has been one of the chief boosters in Congress for gutting the Medicaid program. The Medicaid program, which provides health care for millions of kids, for people with disabilities, for families with parents in nursing homes, cut money to keep people in nursing homes. Nonpartisan analyses of these plans are not pretty. Millions of people in this country, young and old, children and grandparents, poor and middle-class workers, would be denied access to life-saving care. Congressman Price touts his own magic numbers that say different. But make no mistake, this is the record of someone who wants to use his position at HHS to advance a radical, reckless agenda that puts right-wing, anti-government ideology ahead of the health and safety of the American people. During his hearing before the Health Committee, I asked Congressman Price some really pretty simple questions. I asked him about more than $1 trillion in cuts that he has proposed to Medicare and Medicaid. I asked him if he would keep or undermine President Trump's campaign claim that he would protect these programs. I asked him to guarantee that not $1 in cuts to Medicare would take place on his watch. I asked him to guarantee that not $1 in cuts for Medicaid to help people living in nursing homes would happen on his watch. I asked him to guarantee that not $1 in cuts for people with disabilities would happen on his watch. I asked him 3 separate times to make this commitment, and 3 separate times he refused to do so. I want you to think about that. Cut Medicare for millions of seniors, cut help for people with disabilities, cut Medicaid for people living in nursing homes. That is the person that Donald Trump wants to put in charge of those programs. You know, we have a lot of work we need to do on health care. We need to reduce the cost of insurance. We need to make sure that insurance is available to small business owners and to gig workers and to part-time workers. We need to make sure that insurance continues to cover health care for women and people with pre-existing conditions who otherwise are not going to be able to get insurance. What we don't need is to put someone in charge who is hell-bent on destroying health care in America. For me, this is easy. When someone says he wants to cut Medicare, I'm done with him. When someone says, let's take away the money that people rely on to pay for nursing homes, this guy is finished. When someone says that protecting people with pre-existing conditions is a bad idea, they don't get the job. This should be easy for everyone in Congress. This is a moment for Senate Republicans to step up and say no. But there is another reason to reject Congressman Price's nomination. Reason that has nothing to do with his terrible ideas. A reason that would disqualify him even if we agreed on every single issue. The reason is basic ethics. During his time in Congress, Mr. Price has made money by trading hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock in healthcare-related companies at exactly the same time that he pushed legislation that could affect the value of these stocks. His formula has been pretty simple. First, he buys the stock, then he pushes bills to help the company, which helps the stock price go up. For example, Congressman Price bought stock in a company that makes hip and knee replacements, and then he introduced a bill to suspend a federal rule affecting Medicare reimbursements for hip and knee replacements. Congressman Price bought stock in a bunch of pharmaceutical companies. Then he co-sponsored a bill to suspend a federal rule that would hold down drug prices for these companies, for the drugs that these companies manufacture. Congressman Price bought stock in an Australian biotech company with an experimental drug to treat multiple sclerosis. And then he voted for a bill that would make it easier for the FDA to approve these drugs. So what does Congressman Price have to say for himself? How does he explain this connection between buying stock, then supporting changes in the law that would boost the value of the stock that he just bought? Well, he's got his excuses lined up, and I have to say they are doozies. He says he didn't know about the trades. His broker made them without asking him first. Oh, wait, he did know about the trades. He just happened to know about an obscure Australian biotech firm, and he just happened to decide to invest as much as $100,000 in it because it was a good investment. And then he hit his last excuse. Hey, it's all okay because he paid the same price as anyone else who bought the stock. Wow, that is really a heaping, steaming pile of excuses. And the excuses stink. These are Congressman Price's stock trades, not anyone else's. He made those decisions to buy those stocks, and then he repeatedly pressed for rules that would increase the value of those stocks. In fact, with one of the deals, it isn't just a question of stinkiness. It's a question about whether or not he broke the law. By his own account, Congressman Price found out about an Australian biotech company called Innate Immunotherapeutics from a fellow House member who, it just so happens, sits on the company's board and holds the largest stake in the company. So when he decided to buy his latest batch of stock, Congressman Price got access to a private sweetheart deal, meaning he got a discount on the price of the shares that the general public couldn't get. This sequence of events might break the law. That's not good at all. And getting special access to a sweetheart deal doesn't help your claim that you're just an ordinary guy with a boring stock portfolio. So when Congressman Price appeared before the Finance and Health Committees, he said that he had not paid a lower price than had been available to other investors. Whoa, that is just not true. The company itself pointed it out. In fact, Congressman Price got a special discount that went to only 20 people in the country. 20 special friends, including the congressman, who could help write the laws that would make the company even more valuable. And out outside watchdog has called for an SEC investigation into whether Congressman Price has committed insider trading. Price lied to Congress about his trades, and that should be the end of it. No more nomination for Secretary of HHS. The congressman should have the decency to withdraw his nomination. It should have happened weeks ago. And if he didn't go voluntarily, the president and his friends in Congress should have quietly but forcefully pushed him out. But that's not what happened either. Instead, Republicans barreled straight ahead, and they changed the rules to do it. Since Congressman Price lied to the committee, Democrats wanted him back for another hearing to ask him about that. Republicans refused, and Democrats boycotted the Finance Committee to try to force Price to explain why he lied. So the Republican response was just suspend the Senate rules so they could run around the Democrats and move forward Price's nomination anyway. Do we not care about basic ethics anymore? Is that just gone? A congressman should not be buying stocks, then pushing laws to help the company. And that congressman sure shouldn't be lying to the United States Senate about it. Because Congressman Price has no shame, it will take 3 Senate Republicans to reject his nomination. Where are the 3 Republicans who will say no to a man who bought stock and then tried to get the rules changed in Washington so the companies would be more profitable? Where are 3 Republicans who will say no to a man who got a special stock deal that went to only 20 people in the whole country? Where are 3 Republicans who will say no to a man who lied to a Senate committee? This has nothing to do with politics. It is about basic ethics. It is about potentially illegal behavior. Where are 3 Republicans who will say no to this man? When Donald Trump selected Congressman Price for this job, he said Price was, quote, part of a dream team that will transform our healthcare system for the benefit of all Americans. Over the past few weeks, I've been trying to understand exactly what that dream looks like. For families all over this country, the dream is pretty simple. They want to know that when they get sick, they can go to the doctor and not be hit with a surprise bill that they can't pay. When they buy insurance, they want to be sure that it covers birth control and cancer screenings and pre-existing conditions. They want to be able to fight cancer and not lose their house or declare bankruptcy because their insurance company imposes a lifetime limit on benefits. President Trump does not share this dream for health care in America, and neither does Congressman Price. From his first day in office, President Trump has acted to undermine access to health care. And now he has nominated an HHS secretary who will help him sabotage our nation's health care system from inside the Department of Health and Human Services. Yeah, we have our differences over health care. And yes, there are fixes we need to make. But where are 3 Republicans who will say no to a man who wants to cut Medicare? Where are 3 Republicans who will say no to a man who wants to cut nursing home care? Where are 3 Republicans who will say no to a man who wants to cut insurance coverage? Democrats can't do this alone. 3 Republicans need to put aside partisanship and stand up for the American people. We need you. The American people need you. With my remaining time, I want to share with you some of the letters I've been getting from families in Massachusetts who have seen the reckless, radical plans that President Trump, Congressman Price, and Republicans in Congress have put forth for the nation's health care system. These families know exactly what is at stake in this debate. So, Congressman Price didn't have an answer when I asked him to protect Medicare and Medicaid. But these letters are from constituents, and they show just how important these programs are. Lee from Holliston wrote to me, concerned about cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. I'm just going to read an excerpt from his letter. I am a 65-year-old disabled woman who depends on the generosity of Mass Health and Medicare to survive. I am terrified that Medicare and Medicaid will be so drastically cut that I will no longer be able to maintain my life. I live in HUD housing, receive Medicare and Mass Health, which covers all of my health care and allows me to continue to live on my own through senior services and the personal care attendant program. I guess I am just feeling scared and hopeless as I realize the potential for destroying the lives of seniors who live on Social Security and nothing else. I wear an insulin pump. I have type 1 diabetes going on 53 years, and I have multiple complications, including an amputation 11 years ago. My healthcare costs are just unaffordable without all the assistance. Medicare and Mass Health covers everything for me, so that the $1,050 per month I receive is doable for living expenses. I just need to know it's going to be okay. Lee, we need 3 Republicans to help out here. Congressman Price has made it clear that he wants more than $1 trillion in cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, and that affects you. We got to find 3 Republicans to help out and to help stand up for you and the rest of America. I also heard from Alan from South Shore, who's worried about his daughter Meg. And here's what he wrote. My daughter Meg is 29. She was born with a condition called neurofibromatosis. As a result of this, she has benign but inoperable tumors on her spine. They cause her chronic pain and the problems walking. On some days, she cannot walk even 1 step. On other days, she might begin walking with a walker, then suddenly collapse on the floor. Meg cannot hold down a job. She spent the last quarter of 2016 in and out of hospitals. She receives about $700 a month from Social Security disability. She has no savings. She pays for her Medicare prescription drug Part D supplement out of her Social Security. Mass Health is free for her, and it pays for Meg's Medicare Part B. I am retired, so I can only help her a bit. If Trump's first idea about Trump Care goes into law, where he assumes you will buy your health insurance out of savings, I fear Meg will live in her bed watching repeats of quiz shows on television, and her network of care, including emergency services, rehab physical therapy, chronic disease management, prescription drugs, will be reduced. I understand why you're worried, Alan. I'm worried too, because I think that is exactly the path we're on with Congressman Price's nomination to head up HHS. That's why we're fighting back. Boston Center for Independent Living also shared with me a story from a constituent named Jill, who receives health care from the state's Medicaid program. So let me tell you a little bit about Jill. Jill is 62 years old. She has a heart defect, a seizure disorder, and serious osteoporosis. She has had a varied career as a management of a women's clothing company a decade ago, and in the 1980s, she installed some of the first computer networks in public schools. In the past several years, Jill has had significant health problems, surgery for her heart condition and multiple broken bones due to her worsening osteoporosis. Mass Health, the state's Medicaid program, has covered hospital bills, appointments with specialists, rehab stays, and an affordable medication plan. Jill is now hoping to use a personal care assistant to give her support with shopping, making meals, and basic housekeeping. Jill said, quote, "For me, Medicaid is a lifeline. Any cuts from Washington would be a disaster. I hear you on that, Jill. I just hope that Congressman Price and President Trump and the Republicans hear you as well. Medicaid helps a lot of people in Massachusetts, including the very youngest. I got a very powerful letter from Marika from Duxbury, who wrote to me about giving birth to her son Jack after just 28 weeks of pregnancy. I want to read just parts of her letter. I'm writing to you today because I am horrified about the changes that may be happening to health care in the United States. My husband and I welcomed our son Jack at 28 weeks in July of 2015. I had a very normal, healthy pregnancy until suddenly it wasn't. I ended up with rapid onset of HELLP, H-E-L-L-P, a rare and life-threatening syndrome, and an emergency C-section saved both my life and Jack's. Jack was 1 pound, 14 ounces when he was born. We were both in the ICU for some time. My son Jack for 110 days. He had all the issues you'd imagine at 28 weeks. Cardiac, pulmonary, feeding. Today, at 18 months, Jack is a fighter. My hero, really. And despite still needing oxygen and a continuous feeding tube that is surgically inserted into his intestines, he is cruising, talking, and alive. He's alive, and quite frankly, I'm alive because of our amazing health care. I have the benefit of an exceptional employer plan from Harvard University, but Jack also qualified because of his birth weight for Mass Health, and our public health insurance has been an incredible resource. Jack's hospital bills were in the millions after his 110-day stay in the NICU. This doesn't even include my own hospital costs for my stay. Despite having excellent jobs and resources, my husband and I would have been bankrupt, and immediately so, without our private health insurance and Mass Health benefits. Since coming home from the NICU, Jack is still on a feeding tube and oxygen, and he cannot be accepted into regular daycare. He would go to a medical daycare, but he has no cognitive delays, and so placing him in such a facility would not ensure that he gets the regular developmentally appropriate engagement that he needs. And so, Mass Health pays for skilled nursing care in our home with no out-of-pocket costs. This means that Jack gets the care that he needs, and my husband and I can still work at the jobs that we love. Jack participates in early intervention programs and receives feeding therapy, physical therapy, and occupational therapy free of charge. Jack's shots cost $0. He has a prescription medication that is used to prevent a serious lung disease caused by respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, in children at high risk for severe lung disease from RSV. The average wholesale price is $780.15 for the 50 milligrams Synagis vial and $1,416.48 for the 100 milligram vial. Jack gets a 150 milliliter shot every month. I cannot imagine this life without my son's public health insurance. I recently enjoyed the NICU Family Advisory Board at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Hospital in Boston, where Jack and I were cared for, as a way to give back. Today, I mentor other families who have unexpectedly found themselves the parent to a tiny premature baby fighting for life. In nearly every case, navigating the insurance system and fears about money are top of mind. Well, I'm glad to hear that Jack is doing well, but I understand why it is that you want to hang on to Mass Health and why it is that we cannot take the cuts that Congressman Price has proposed. Families in Massachusetts are also deeply worried about the future of the Affordable Care Act. Jackie from Norwood wrote to me about how the ACA helped her get coverage for therapy after her mother was killed. She wrote, "My mother was murdered when I was 24. I was on her health care, which kicked me off the day after she died. I recently accepted a new job, and I was set to start that Monday. She was killed on Saturday. I had already left my previous full-time job the Friday before. Due to having to move states after her death, I couldn't start my new job. I didn't know when I'd have work again that could provide insurance, nor did I have another parent whose plan I could join. I also had no way of affording COBRA payments. So in the matter of one night, I was left helpless in so many ways. Not having health insurance was one of many side effect issues that no homicide victim's family should have to worry about, especially the next day and when planning a funeral. Thanks to the Affordable Care Act, I was able to get covered almost immediately, which meant I could still afford my current medications, and I was able to get into needed therapy right away. If it weren't for the ACA, I would have been left struggling and sick as a result of something far outside my control." Very true, Jackie. Jackie goes on to say, "I ended up finding work within a couple of months, and I am still in treatment for PTSD. I was lucky enough to find employment at Harvard University and no longer needed the coverage through the ACA. I have generous health benefits provided to me. However, I never want a fellow citizen or a victim of homicide to be without medical care due to cost, pre-existing conditions, or other setbacks. I am happy my tax dollars go to help programs like Mass Health and the ACA. We all work hard, but that doesn't mean we are all as fortunate. I am not the typical poster child for a homicide victim survivor. I am white and college educated. I work for an Ivy League school. I still needed help when disaster struck. And so many others less privileged than me need help finding affordable health care. Please continue fighting for me and other victims and survivors of homicide." That's what we're here for, Jackie. That's what we're supposed to do. We just need 3 Republicans to help us out on this. I also heard from Jennifer from Northampton, who is terrified for her family if the ACA is repealed. She says, "I suppose I can't say when our story starts. Maybe it was the day I met my then life partner, now wife, of 16 years. Maybe it begins when she had to have emergency surgery in Maryland when she wasn't covered under my insurance because our union wasn't legally recognized. Maybe it begins with the tens of thousands of dollars of debt we incurred in uncovered medical expenses when we tried to get pregnant with our son. Or maybe it started 2 days ago when the unthinkable happened. My wife got laid off. After 7 years of exemplary services to a large human services agency whose mission is supporting individuals and families affected by homelessness, my wife was given no warning, no severance, and no compassion in her sudden dismissal from the agency. For any family, this would be devastating. Now we come to the dire part. About a year ago, my younger sister Stephanie was diagnosed with an aggressive form of triple-negative breast cancer at 35 years of age. But this story isn't about that. 6 months later, my mother got diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. I didn't have to be an overeducated lesbian to know that there was something genetic going on in my family. I got tested, for the BRCA gene and was found positive for the mutation that causes breast cancer, specifically triple negative like my sister had. And I am currently looking at an 80% chance of developing breast cancer in my lifetime. I need a double mastectomy, and I need it soon. It's scheduled, in fact, for March 6th, 2017. And now, my wife doesn't have a job. I am a behavior analyst who specializes in the treatment of children with autism spectrum disorder. I have a small private practice and don't make enough money to support our household. I also don't have access to health insurance through any of my contacts. That is why it is dire. One laid-off spouse, one 4-year-old son, one self-employed wife with an 80% chance of developing breast cancer, and fear of the ACA being repealed. This is dire. We are terrified. I am terrified. This isn't a wait-and-see situation for my family. This is us. This is now. And this is real. Yes, Jennifer. And that's why we're here tonight in the United States Senate to debate whether or not Congressman Price, a man who wants to cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, repeal the Affordable Care Act, is going to be the next head of Health and Human Services. That's why we're fighting. That's why we're looking for 3 Republicans to step over with the Democrats and turn him down. We must protect the Affordable Care Act. I also got a letter from Olivia, a college student from North Reading. Olivia wrote me about what the ACA means to her as someone living with multiple chronic illnesses. She wrote, I am a 22-year-old woman from a middle-class suburb of Boston. I attended the University of Massachusetts Amherst and will be applying to graduate school next year. I eat an anti-inflammatory diet. I exercise regularly, do not smoke, and drink lots of water. I am on my parents' insurance, which they receive through their employer. I am a patient at some of the best hospitals in the world. I am so fortunate to live in a state that protects my right to affordable health care. I was also hopeful when I heard that President Trump was considering modifying Obamacare rather than repealing it. However, I am still worried about the actions that will be taken in 2017 by his administration and by Congress. If you met me, you would see a young, vibrant, and ambitious woman. In other people's words, not mine. Many people and politicians in this country would meet me and not assume that I rely on the ACA. I am not from a low-income family. I don't live in an area that doesn't have adequate medical facilities. I appear well. I am, however, living with multiple chronic illnesses. I suffer from asthma, fibromyalgia, chronic urticaria, chronic migraines, irritable bowel syndrome, gastroesophageal reflux disease, and a rare genetic kidney disorder. I take multiple medications daily that keep me alive and prevent further health complications and that allow me to take care of myself. I also seek other therapies to manage my conditions, such as chiropractic care and physical therapy. I currently have great health insurance, yet I still pay hundreds of dollars a month just to give myself a quality of life. I read the Trump-Pence administration's health care plan, and I am aware of the efforts by the GOP to repeal Obamacare and their readiness to do so now that President Trump has taken office. I don't believe I have to explain to you why this worries me. No, you don't. I won't go on a rant about why health care reform should be about the people and not the money, although I could. I will also not talk about why we should have universal health care, although I could. I am hoping that my story offers a slightly different perspective on why certain aspects of the ACA cannot be modified. Please remind your fellow senators that millions of Americans suffer from multiple chronic illnesses, many of which are invisible, and that we are a minority that is often forgotten. Many people are just like me. We are college students and new graduates who have to learn to manage our medical conditions before going out into the real world. To do this, we may have to stay on our parents' insurance until we are 26 years old. We are people who can only work part-time jobs and will need insurance to help us keep our medical costs down. We may require expensive prescriptions and numerous doctor visits a year. We cannot have a cap on our care because our conditions are chronic and unpredictable. We are people who will have to apply for insurance with pre-existing conditions, which should not be held against us. We are thankful for preventive care because it prevents illnesses that would exacerbate our other conditions. Healthcare is a business that we need, but that we didn't ask to be a part of. It is a business we all take part in, whether we plan to or not. We are not burned down houses. We are citizens who provide meaningful contributions to our country. I hope that Congress can work together to continue to give people like me a fighting chance. Well, I'm with you on that. I hope Congress can work together to give people like you a fighting chance. I also got a letter from Christine in Canton, who wrote to me about her son. She writes, "My oldest child is a 21-year-old college student, soon to turn 22 in February, who is also transgender. He suffers from anxiety and depression. He's been working very hard to complete college while also seeking treatment for his mental health issues. He sees a therapist weekly, and he has also been hospitalized twice for mental health issues since he's been in college. Luckily, due to the Affordable Care Act, he is able to remain on our insurance where the co-payments for both therapy and hospitalization are at least manageable. If he were not to have coverage through our insurance, I'm not sure that we could afford to pay for his treatment. And as a college student, he certainly could not afford to pay for it. It frightens me to think of what will happen to him if he is not able to receive treatment to keep him healthy. Like so many others covered by the Affordable Care Act, it is a life or death situation. I need to know that you will fight by any means possible to keep the Affordable Care Act from getting repealed. I also have a 19-year-old college freshman and a 17-year-old high school senior. And while they do not have the same health issues as their brother, we all know how that can change in an instant. The repeal of the Affordable Care Act will also have consequences for them down the line. I guarantee, Christine, I will be here to fight for you, to fight for keeping the Affordable Care Act for you and for families like yours. Denise from southeastern Massachusetts wrote to me about how her family is fighting cancer. And here's what she said. "We are a family of 4 with 3 cancer survivors. My husband is a childhood cancer survivor who is now fighting a blood disorder and is a patient at Dana-Farber. I am a 3-time cancer survivor, having been diagnosed with breast cancer at age 42 with no family history, and I have since had 2 recurrences. I have had radiation, 5 years of tamoxifen therapy, a bilateral mastectomy, and reconstruction. My reconstruction has been difficult with 5 surgeries in the last 18 months. I have been postponing another surgery due to cost since my insurance has changed for the worse. At age 23, my daughter was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma and underwent surgery and 7 months of chemotherapy. We are are a family that has always been proactive and responsible in receiving regular health care. And now, my husband and I have been rejected for long-term care. My daughter, who has 2 children, pays a higher premium for life insurance and has been denied cancer insurance. We are in a position where we cannot even succeed in our attempts to take responsibility for ourselves. This outreach to you is a further attempt to do just that, to maybe give you one more example of reality in your fight for us. We are not whining. We are fortunate to be a close, loving family that has the strength to rally every time adversity has struck. But we are tired from the fight and very afraid for the future. It is shocking to us that the richest country in the world, after years of working, planning, and saving, that we are at the point of fearing a possible bankruptcy in our later years. We also fear financial destruction for our hardworking children due to uncovered medical expenses or the possible exorbitant premiums of a high-risk insurance pool in Worthington. And I want to read you Jenny's entire letter because she really underlines what is at stake in this fight. My husband and I have spent our entire careers in the arts. I write music for the theater. My husband is a novelist, playwright, and freelance medical writer. We have 2 children. We own a home. We paid back every dime on our student loans, and we contribute regularly to a self-funded retirement account. We have no consumer debt. In short, we are hardworking, fiscally responsible people. We recognize the trade-offs that come with being our own bosses. We enjoy the freedoms of self-employment and take seriously the extra burden that society imposes on us, including making our own Social Security payments, contributing to Medicare, and buying health care on the individual market, something we have done our entire adult lives. When the Affordable Care Act was passed, we were thrilled. For the first time, we had adequate coverage for our family. Our deductibles shrank. We lost the dreaded co-insurance provision, and we began to think that we could prepare financially should we face the worst, or so we believed. Our difficulties began in late 2014 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Over the weeks that followed, I endured 5 surgeries, including a unilateral mastectomy and reconstruction. Almost immediately after, I began to experience complications. Since then, I've come to learn that I was having a reaction to the silicone implant used in my reconstruction, and that was just the early stage of a complex autoimmune condition that still lacks a name. Back then, all I knew was that I was racked with constant severe pain. I lost the ability to walk. I could no longer think straight, and I lost sight in my right eye. Luckily, we stumbled upon an article by a Dutch team that had examined a cohort of women suffering from the same condition. After consulting with the lead author of the paper, we decided that my implant was to blame, and we determined to have it removed. Although I experienced some relief immediately after explantation, I have never fully recovered. The joint pain and exhaustion persist. I have shed more than 1/3 of my body weight. The battery of medications I take do little more than keep my pain at bay, permitting me to drive my son to school or shop for groceries, but not much more. As for my artistic life, it's been put on hold. I have unfinished commissions from 2 theaters, Chicago Shakespeare Theater and Playwrights Horizons in New York City, and both institutions have been incredibly patient. Yet the truth is that I have been unable to work for more than 2 years. Severe cognitive impairment is a hallmark of my condition, and I have serious problems with my short-term memory. Holding the thread of a conversation is incredibly difficult, and I experience blinding headaches if I write music for more than a couple of hours. Frequently, it feels as though someone has reorganized my brain but forgotten to leave me the instructions. It is frustrating. It is terrifying. Only one thing has made it possible for me to survive this at all: the coverage I receive through the ACA. The day I got my cancer diagnosis, I was in the process of recertifying through the Massachusetts Health Connector. I was thrilled when my local navigator told me that thanks to my new diagnosis, I qualified for Massachusetts Breast and Cervical Cancer Treatment Program, a Medicaid-backed initiative designed to cover middle and low-income women through their treatments. Not only would I be covered, but our 2 children would also be insured by MassHealth, our state's Medicaid program. Though my husband continued to purchase care through a separate plan, this single event saved our family from financial ruin. Now, all of that stands to change. With the repeal of the life-saving provisions guaranteed by the ACA, we are faced with the complete erosion of our savings. The Republican Congress has already voted to eliminate the ban on denying individuals coverage on the basis of previously existing conditions, meaning that I will most likely be uninsurable. What will happen then? Will we go bankrupt? Will we lose our home? How will I cope without my medications when we can no longer afford to pay for them? The passage of the ACA did more to shore up our little family than any other piece of legislation in my lifetime. It has enabled me to face my grave illness without worrying whether the cost would be a factor in my treatment or whether I could try the next medication my doctors prescribed to relieve my pain. In sharing our story on social media, I have been overwhelmed by the outpouring of concern from our tiny community of theater professionals. The president of the Dramatists Guild, a professional association for theater artists, called me to offer the assistance of their emergency fund should I need it. And while it is heartwarming to receive the support of my professional community, the hard truth is that even the most doggedly determined not-for-profits can't possibly replace the broad social safety net of the federal government, a safety net Republicans are determined to shred. In every industrialized country but ours, healthcare is considered an inalienable human right. It is abhorrent to claim that care is something Americans should have to shop for. Price comparison shopping may seem like a wonderful market-driven design, but in reality, it forces us to confront the terrifying arithmetic of balancing how much care we need against what we can afford. The sicker one grows, the harder it becomes to solve that equation. We have no idea what the Republicans intend by way of a replacement for the ACA. They refuse to specify, despite their years of claiming that the ACA is a failure. They talk of expanding health savings accounts, HSAs, through such accounts, though such accounts represent nothing but a disingenuous transfer of the cost to the consumer. Even if such an approach made sense, how far would $6,750, that's the current HSA limit, go in meeting actual health care costs? That amount would be wiped out after a single visit to the emergency room. What's more, where do they expect sick Americans, those fighting for their lives and unable to work precisely because of their illnesses, to suddenly uncover $6,750 to sink into tax-sheltered HSA? Clearly, this idea has been put forward by people who do not depend on their health insurance for their very lives. They pretend that this sort of thing will, quote, save our system, But their proposal is like offering a patient an Advil for an amputation, laughably inadequate at best and an utter horror at worst. What's more, efforts like the expansion of Medicaid under the ACA have already saved us, or many of us, certainly me in any case. A Republican friend wrote me recently venting about the third world coverage that Medicaid provides. What he had to say was ignorant and false. Medicaid isn't failing. To the contrary, it has saved my life and the lives of many others who have simply had the misfortune of falling ill. And isn't that, after all, one of the primary functions of government? To care for its citizens and return them to the ranks of the healthy and productive. We have no idea what the year ahead holds for us. It is likely we will face health premiums of $24,000 or more for a low-level plan. Our premiums will consume 30% of our income, more than our mortgage. Despite Mass Health, we shelled out nearly $15,000 for uncovered medical expenses in 2016, and we are already on track to surpass that number this year. On top of everything else, this is the year our daughter starts college. I am not the typical Medicaid patient that people seem so fond of demonizing, nor am I some poster child of the ACA. I am simply one of the countless individuals whose story does not fit the narrative the Republicans are attempting to feed us about the ACA and about what it means to be sick in America. Medicaid is on the chopping block not because it's failing, but because the people who benefit from it are too often fail to speak up on their own behalf in some musical or play. Trust me, I know. They are your friends and neighbors. They are families whose lives have been upended by illness. This is what happened to my family. And with a single diagnosis, it could be your family too. Thank you. Thank you for writing. This is why we're here to fight. I also heard from Caitlin from Cambridge, who said the ACA has allowed her to continue pursuing her postdoctoral research. She says, I am a postdoctoral fellow at MIT, and I have a pre-existing condition. In 2012, during my second year of grad school, I started having debilitating pain in my abdomen. The pain was so bad I couldn't eat or sleep, and I lost 30 pounds over 2 months. The pain was so bad I couldn't wait the full 3 months to see a specialist. And I went to the ER and finally got a diagnosis for an autoimmune disease and began treatment. However, my condition was so advanced that a little over a year later, I needed an emergency surgery while I was visiting family out of state. I spent 6 nights in the hospital and rang up a bill in excess of $50,000. Luckily, I was 25 and still on my parents' insurance. Additionally, I was doubly insured by the student health insurance from the University of California, for which I was automatically enrolled through my graduate program. Other than a $200 deductible, my hospital bill was paid in full. Now that I have a chronic illness, having quality health care and regular checkups is vital to staying healthy and productive. My medication, Humira, cost $5,000 a month out of pocket, which was more than double my grad school stipend. With insurance, I only paid $25 a month. The surgery helped me tame the inflammation in my intestines. My disease began to express itself as arthritis in my joints. The pain was so bad that one Christmas I canceled my trip home to see my family and spent the whole time alone on my couch. I had a bad reaction to some of the medications and became so severely anemic that I needed a blood transfusion. Additionally, one of the medications I take causes severe birth defects, so I needed an IUD to prevent pregnancy. Easily, all these conditions could become overwhelmingly expensive. But with my student health insurance through the University of California, I could afford it. The premium was $300 per month, part of which was covered by the university. My medications cost $110 a month, and I had a yearly out-of-pocket maximum of $2,000. While I didn't get my insurance through the exchanges, the other conditions of the ACA, which determine the minimum quality of care, made it possible for my care to be affordable. By having proper treatment and care, I can be a productive member of society. I have received my PhD in applied mathematics, and my research contributes to the design of medical devices that can be used for cancer screening. I am able to mentor young girls and encourage them to study math and science, and who knows, one of them may cure cancer one day. Since I am no longer in pain and I am not in debt, I was able to find a prestigious job after graduation. When a state provides for the health of its people, they can thrive at home and at work. It's not only the moral choice, but also a good choice for the economy. Caitlin, thanks for writing, and thanks for doing one of the big success stories under the Affordable Care Act. This is what we're fighting for tonight. I also heard from a young woman in Somerville named Samantha, and here's what she wrote. I've been dealing with severe mental health issues since I was a kid. I am now 27. In that time, I've been through numerous hospitalizations, residential treatment, day treatment, intensive outpatient treatment, and outpatient treatment. When I was 18, I had to drop out of college and spend 3 months in residential treatment for my eating disorder. The year prior, I spent 2 months in residential treatment and 6 months between day and intensive outpatient treatment. And I had been in therapy for 4 years. Due to Massachusetts law, I was still covered by my parents' insurance, but the Massachusetts healthcare reform didn't stop insurance companies from imposing lifetime limits. At 18 years old, fighting for my life, I overheard my parents discussing lifetime limits in regard to my health care. I don't know how much all that treatment cost or how much of my lifetime limit I had consumed. For the next 7 years, I was in and out of treatment at various levels. Mr. President, I ask for leave to extend my time by 10 minutes if I might finish my stories.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. In 2014, when I had my own health care, I had a bad relapse. For the first time, I was paying for my own treatment. I had health insurance through my employer, and that was really good. But even with that, for 1 month of residential treatment, 1 month of day treatment, and 3 months of intensive outpatient, plus therapy, a nutritionist, a psychiatrist, and medication, all crucial to my recovery, my out-of-pocket health care costs reached almost $10,000. These days, I am much more stable and have remained in relatively good health, but all because of the continued support I get from my therapist, psychiatrist, and doctor. I can only imagine how much money has been spent and how close I'd be to my lifetime limit if those were still in place. And of course, all that adds up to being a pre-existing condition. The simple fact is that I would most likely be dead today if it were not for the protections provided me by the ACA. And if I lose those protections, if I have another relapse, I will either end up dead or unemployed and mired in debt. Samantha, thank you for writing. Thank you for fighting. And that's why we're on the floor of the Senate tonight, to continue to fight for the Affordable Care Act and to continue to fight against cuts to Medicare, Medicaid. This is what's at stake for families in Massachusetts. As Jennifer said in her letter, this is us, this is now, and this is real. Congressman Price wants to cut more than $1 trillion from Medicare and Medicaid. But I am not giving up because I am here to fight for Lee and Meg and Jill and Marika's baby Jack. Congressman Price wants to rip up the behavioral health protections in the Affordable Care Act. But I am not giving up because I'm here to fight for Christine's son and Jackie and Samantha. Congressman Price wants to get rid of the ACA's ban on discriminating against individuals with pre-existing conditions. But I'm not giving up because I'm here to fight for Jenny and Caitlin and Olivia and Denise and Jennifer. I will fight for every one of them and for the tens of millions of people who are counting on Medicare and who are in need of Medicaid to pay nursing home bills and to help with home health care for people with disabilities and who need that Medicaid money for children with serious problems. I will fight for every one of them. Where are 3 Republicans who will do the right thing and fight alongside me? That's what tonight is all about. Mr. President, I yield.